Hello, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable discussion. Before we get started, let me remind you that we are covered by the BIPCOT No Government License, which allows for the reuse and distribution of this podcast by anyone and everyone except for governments and the bludgies thereof. You can learn more about that at bipcot.org. That is bipcot.org. We are also protected by Brandenburg v. Ohio in 1969, which ruled that the government cannot punish inflammatory speech unless that speech is, quote, directed to, inciting, or producing imminent lawless action and is likely to incite or produce such action. So everything we say here on the podcast is hypothetical.
Allegedly.
Ignorant. Oh, wait. I got that. I went and found the
Michael Jackson South Park, allegedly.
No. The
yeah. Shit, I should pull that up for this.
The Freedom Fiends. The Freedom Fiends one.
Allegedly. Pocket Alibi.
They have an app. They have an app called Pocket Alibi. And that's what it is. It's just a lot of that stuff. Like
purposes only.
Nice.
Yeah, when you first download it, the license on it that pops up says not for use by governments or government agents. They are big square dum-dum heads.
Nice. Very nice.
May result in state beatings and or incarceration.
Nice.
Thanks to Michael Dean for putting that one out. I've totally forgot about it, and the other day I was like, it just popped in my head. I was like, oh, I have to go find that. No, and then we canceled last week. So I didn't.
That's like I saw some graffiti, a picture of some graffiti from the riots, and somebody had spray painted on one of the police departments. It says something like "police are big doo-doos" or something.
I saw a picture of a sign from Chicago, and it said, "Whoever threw that tear gas, your mom's a hoe."
Yeah, yep. I loved that one.
So, speaking of Chicago, I know I shared the link around. I know Andrew saw it. I don't know if you guys saw it, but somebody jacked a police horse.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yes. And on the video,
I saw the live. I saw the video on Twitter. Yeah.
he went live or something, and like he's riding the horse down the street, and some guy rolls up next to him on a bike. And he's like, where'd you get the horse? What are you doing?
I stole it from the police.
and you hear like 10 people laugh.
Cheering. Yeah. Well, I'm just gonna say, please don't steal a horse unless you know how to care for a horse. Horses can be delicate creatures health-wise.
And we have two here. It's crazy.
Yeah, you don't want to end up with a sick or dead horse on your hands, so you better know how much they can be ridden, how much rest they need.
They basically have to be put down.
Yeah, so please.
If you're new to the program, you might not recognize that other voice.
That's
right. If you're old to the program, you're probably jumping up and down because
you know who this fucking OG is.
Who it is?
We have an OG in the house. Started the podcast with me and Derica.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Dan Hodor up there in the PNW, formerly of New York.
Yeah.
What's good in your world, Dan? How's the life up there?
It's good. I mean, like, we're living kind of, I wouldn't say suburban, it's more rural, but like on the edge of suburbia, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I don't live in the city area because I'm not a dumb fuck. But
have you been converted to Antifa yet?
Absolutely not.
They just need to work.
I'm more anti-Antifa than I've ever been.
What's your closest city again?
Probably Tacoma.
Okay.
And then Seattle's probably like, I don't know, like 45 minutes to an hour away.
Hey,
it's not far.
If Tacoma is your closest city, I'm going to be in Oregon in August. And we got to get together. You and Molly and the kid and me and my kids.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. Because Tacoma's not that far from my parents, where my parents live.
Yeah, no, we're, I don't know, we're maybe like an hour from like maybe a little further out. I've never been to Portland, so I can't exactly say how far away we are, but we're not that far.
Right. What's the name of the town that you're in?
We're in Puyallup.
Oh, yeah, that's not far.
Yeah. I'll just give my location away to the feds. Yeah.
If you're on here, they know.
I know. I'm sure they do. Hi, guys. Miss you. What I say, guys?
Yeah.
Go get a coffee or something. Treat yourself.
What's going on me? Fucking slack-jawed piece of shit.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me. And then we need to fucking jump
So.
to SVU or whatever the hell it is.
Oh,
Order
yeah.
SVU.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
Where's
that
the
was
doink doink, Andrew?
Doink, doink. We have the
Wasn't me. Dun,
doink
dun.
doink. And we're gonna use that later because we have another article about strippers. This is gonna be like seven or eight episodes in a row where we talk about strippers.
It's just every freaking time.
Yep. So we call it the doink doink, and Andrew's responsible for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I've noticed is that like it's this whole like lockdown bullshit and everybody being forced to like stay home from their job and everything else, like if their job is non-essential, is that like people have kind of gotten, I would say, more back to their roots in terms of like gardening and being more involved with their kids and all that shit, and like actually speaking what their kids are being taught, and they're like, whoa, wait a second, like I didn't know they were being taught any of this shit. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like getting like upset about it.
Yep.
Like,
and all the people that I've argued with over the years
like,
who've told me, oh, I could never homeschool. I could never put up with my kids that much. How are you qualified to homeschool your kids? Well, now they get a crash course, and it's almost like there's this poetic beauty to it.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've gotten shit from public schoolers for so many fucking years for homeschooling my kids.
Yeah.
So this feels really good.
I think a lot of moms are like, holy shit, I actually like hanging out with my kids and teaching them stuff, like, and I don't have to go to work. Do I really want to go back to work? Like, is that really like the ideal situation for me? Like, a lot of women are like starting to realize that. Yeah,
there's a recent article that came out from Real Clear Opinion. I guess a research poll said that 40% of the parents polled say they are more likely to continue homeschool or virtual school after lockdowns.
Yep.
Because I mean, they see the
and that's up like before the lockdown. Roughly 4% of students were homeschooled.
Right.
So
4 to 40.
Yeah.
We can't.
My kids are that 4%.
All of a sudden, everyone's realizing, oh, this wasn't as hard as I thought. And, oh, I actually should care about what my kids are getting taught because, Jesus, look at this curriculum. Oh, my God. And now...
You know what? You want to know what nobody's thinking, though, and it pisses me off? Nobody's thinking, oh, shit, that anarchist chick that I called a fucking retard on the internet that one time might have been right about a couple of things.
That's because you have them blocked and they can't respond to you.
I've been blocking a lot of people lately, Dan, and Jason's been making memes about it.
You block people? No.
I've done
blocked everyone and got off social media.
Yeah, I know you did.
Just blocked everybody. All y'all.
But
you really need to do one of her as the Venezuelan guy from Park and Rec that's doing the straight to jail and just be like blocked. Just this blocked. Definitely blocked.
It's funny.
Well, you know what? I'm fucking fed up. I am. Yeah. Like, I don't mind people that have different opinions than me, but people who don't even know how to clearly fucking articulate and argue their fucking opinions, that shit is not going to be on my fucking page. Those people will be blocked.
Those people should read your book, which is linked in the description below.
That's right. Buy my book.
Buy Jericho's book.
Yeah.
so she could buy her kid some pants because he doesn't like wearing pants.
Yeah, okay, but listen, before you leave a bad review based on how many fucking pages of content my book is, read the
book.
fucking product description, please.
Read the book before you leave a description because
please
title
read it and work.
Yeah. I love that it's called a workbook. Too.
Yeah.
Like it's called a workbook, and then people are like, "What's with all these blank pages?"
Yeah, what's with all the blanks?
What?
It's a fucking workbook. It's right in the title of the fucking book.
I was expecting a 1,000-page sci-fi novel.
Yeah, I'd like a college level dissertation on critical thinking, please. I wrote it for fucking 9-year-olds. I wrote it for 9-year-olds, you goddamn fucking infants. Holy shit.
I mean, a lot of people at the 8th grade level anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, for a majority of people, and that's not to, like, downplay people's intelligence. It's just that, like, people are kind of geared to learn, like, small bits of information. They're not, like, meant to be sat down and put in front of a 3-hour podcast to learn the inner workings of the French Revolution. Like, you know what I mean? Like, most people, like, fall asleep during that shit or something, you know? So
yeah,
it's literally called a critical thinking workbook for beginners.
Yeah,
and then they're like, why is this not advanced, and what's with the blank pages?
Yeah,
well, I'm pretty sure the title told you exactly what to expect there.
One of the 2-star reviews on it literally says, "This book is only for raw beginners." It fucking says for beginners on the title, on the fucking cover. It says for beginner.
That's the equivalent of buying a something for dummies and being like, gosh, they just kept acting like I was an idiot and didn't know what I was doing.
2 stars. They only wrote this for dummies.
Who would have thought?
Oh my God.
This book is for the most beginner considering learning about critical thinking. It gives you the most basic concept and fills the rest 90% with blank pages, be warned.
It's not blank pages. It's a guided fucking journal, and it has the steps of deductive reasoning. No!
I don't want to have to do any work. What is this in the workbook?
Whoever Raymond Chung is, you should reconsider your life.
maybe consider the choices that have led you mentally.
And I swear to God, every time I've ever been on a podcast talking about my book, every fucking post I've ever made about it, I mention it is 22 pages of very concisely stated, like, basics of Aristotelian logical argumentation, written conversationally for kids, and the rest is a guided journal. That is literally how I describe it every time I fucking talk about it. And still, people are mad that it is what it is and that it's exactly what I said it is. Yeah.
How dare you put the exact description in the title of the book?
I know.
Did you say reptilian?
I said Aristotelian, like Aristotle.
Okay. Gotcha. So I was gonna have to put on my tinfoil hat there for a minute.
Don't tempt Jason. I know he has one sitting right next to his computer.
It's sitting right there on my windowsill. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I also have a meme, a 4-panel meme of Dan turning into Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Nice.
No.
It happens sometimes under a full moon.
You've been taking that super male vitality, huh?
He hears one frog ribbit.
Oh
my God! Dan's super male vitality turning the frogs gay.
He just shows up in an armored car and this megaphone.
Start tearing rainbow flags in half. Shit, you know.
Yeah. What you're doing to the frogs?
His shirt pops off. His chest becomes barreled.
I thought this was America.
That was a long social segment, you know, like the initial Yeah, before we actually get to any fucking news articles, but Dan is back, so we haven't talked
to Dan in a while, so
yeah,
we're reestablishing character. This is a narrative process for film,
and I'm reestablishing dominance, just so everybody kind of
easy.
I like it when Derek is dominant.
Well,
Slowly back away.
I can't help it. I'm raising a house full of boys. Like,
Yeah, you gotta be.
I have no choice.
Fucking law.
So,
all right, let's
yeah.
All right, let's get into. Did you guys see the article or the video? I know I posted it. I'm pretty sure most of you saw it. The police walking down the street, and they start yelling at the people standing on their porch.
Oh yeah, and shooting paintballs at them and shit.
And then they just open fire on the group of people standing on their porch.
Well, no, they're and saying that they're paintballs is misleading because it's simunition is what they're firing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Derek, I don't know if you guys ever trained with any simunition at all.
Kevin did when he did auxiliary security force.
That's an actual cartridge.
Right.
But instead of a bullet on the end, it's a little like hard cellulose ball filled with like essentially a food dye and some vegetable oil mixed together. It's a paintball being fired out of an actual gun round.
And it's more painful than a regular paintball.
Well, right. It's still traveling at 1,000 feet per second. Like it's when you train with it, you have to wear like neck guards because if it hits you in the throat, it can crush your windpipe. You have to wear really thick goggles because it can take your eyes out. You have to wear a helmet, face mask, a cup because it'll shatter a testicle if it hits it. Like
holy crap! The original video on Twitter has 176,000 shares.
Yeah, I bet
that counts as viral. But here it's let's listen to it.
Look at this. They just keep coming.
Oh, go inside! Get inside! Get inside!
And that's cops yelling at people.
In your house now! Let's go!
On their own fucking
standing
front
on their own
porches.
porch.
Mm-hmm.
Go inside now! Get in the house!
And they opened up on a group of people, and they're young people. I would argue like college age kids standing on their porch,
their own property, and not just their own property, their own porch, like their own house.
Yep.
Yeah. Apparently, it's Whittier, the Whittier neighborhood of Minneapolis. 9:30 at night. I guess they were enforcing curfew.
Yep.
Standing on their porch, and they just open fire, and they wonder why people don't blindly support law enforcement.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean the scene is guys in full battle rattle. There's weapons.
There's Humvees. Okay, so the video opens and they're looking like up the street, and there's Humvees, and then they turn and they look down the street as law enforcement is walking up the street, full battle rabble, totally kitted out, like freaking Nazis walking up the road, and they just start yelling at these people sitting on the porch. And there's 4 or 5 of them that yell, and then one cop yells, "Light them up," and they let 2 or 3 people open fire.
And how are these residents supposed to know, like in that moment, that those guns are not, that they're not like live ammunition rounds?
Oh, they don't. There's absolutely no way to know.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. Again, those are actual cartridges that are just firing a paintball. So that sounds like an actual gunshot. And if you watch the footage, you can actually see the muzzle flash as they fire directly at the camera.
So
yeah, can you imagine standing on your porch and then the cops roll through looking like a fucking invading army and yell at you to get in your house and then open fire on you for no fucking reason?
I mean, that's shit that you see in post-apocalyptic, like, tyrannical government
Red
future
Dawn
movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, with
one of my favorite movies, Red Dawn. Like that absolutely could have been a scene out of the more modern version of Red Dawn.
Yeah.
Or, you know, and that's the funny thing lately is like all of this footage that I'm seeing and stuff is really, I have to kind of chuckle like sardonically because the everything that you're seeing is like cutscenes from a post-apocalyptic film showing the collapse of society.
Right. That's what I was thinking too. Like, it looks like a fucking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it
mean,
really is.
See, my whole thing with this is that like it's just a little weird to me that like all this shit kicks off like super organized right after the fucking whole like, you know, pandemic thing fails and it like doesn't come out that 2 million people are gonna die or whatever that Neil Ferguson guy said in Imperial College in London that his models predicted. And that, you know, the death rate is like extremely lower, and they got all these crazy implementations of these restrictions on people's liberties and shit over some virus that's like basically no worse than the flu. I mean, it's
Like
viral pneumonia.
I mean, either
it's like 0.3% chance of actually catching COVID, and then the death rate is like 0.00000014. It's like something like that.
Yeah, they said 0.2, but that's figuring in all the people that they labeled as died with coronavirus, not died.
Yeah, including people like who died. Like they admitted that a guy who died of gunshot wounds
in Washington. Washington admitted that.
Yeah, totally fudging the numbers.
But I gotta say, there's still
the federal government pays them.
Oh yeah, no, I know
through the emergency.
Right.
Or whatever they list as COVID.
Yeah, if they put somebody on a ventilator, they get like I don't even know how many $1,000.
Half the people they put on ventilators died.
Yeah, the ventilators actually, and a lot of doctors are saying that the ventilators actually are what killed them. Because when you put somebody who doesn't need to be on a ventilator, you destroy their diaphragm.
Yeah, no, I've seen almost die from being put on a ventilator and having the pressure turned up too high.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can burst your lungs. I mean,
but there is back to Dan's point, there is still a chance that this is organic because of this coronavirus and all the lockdowns, and people are just fucking sitting there getting angrier and angrier in their homes and more isolated and more disenfranchised, and nobody has their fucking jobs back yet, and then this shit happens. So you got people with too much time on their hands who've been, cooped up for too fucking long and are getting mad. What's that?
I think that's an element of it. And I think that's kind of mixed in with the co-opted, engineered side of things because it's like...
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a small core group that's fucking like deliberately pushing these things,
Well, because when you lose control using a super scary virus to control the population, now you need to come up with some other thing that's going to scare people a lot.
Okay, you guys, I absolutely believe that this began organically. Like George Floyd dying was not like planned.
Yeah,
right?
It
was nothing like that. So it happened and video.
The cop and George Floyd together at a club.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they worked at a club. Well, and the cop that stood guard over him was his brother-in-law, and like a lot of it's a little hinky.
It's small area. I mean,
let's just say that it was organic.
Let's say, him dying, and then like the initial protest was organic, but Raheem Emanuel said, right? Never let a crisis go to waste.
Yep.
And you absolutely know that they have shit planned. They have shit in place. They have contingency after contingency after contingency. That when something like this happens, that they have the ability to jump on it.
Yeah. And I have no doubt that the worst troublemakers in any of these crowds are agent provocateurs. I have no fucking doubt.
The AutoZone guy in Minneapolis.
Yeah, my page is still getting, Hootenanny Roundup is still getting some serious, what I like to call fan mail, over having helped to expose that motherfucker as a cop. And the best part is
that...
the
umbrella?
Yeah. So we obtained conversations between his ex-fiance and someone else, where she recognized her gear that he had stolen, that's what he's wearing, and identified from the video his voice, his walk.
I thought the pink
manner.
respirator was a little odd for a dude.
So she identifies all of it in that conversation. We obtained screenshots of that, and we posted all of that and pointed out, like, hey, look, this is as far as I'm concerned, a confirmation. Like, somebody who's that close to somebody should be able to identify them that easily, and they identified them immediately. And it went so viral that we got an angry response from the St. Cloud Police Department, or the St. Paul Police Department.
Oh shit!
Because he's from the St. Paul Police Department. I know. I was very proud of that. Like, where they're like, oh well, we've obtained copies of these rumors from, but we investigated it, and that cop's just still on the streets with us, keeping us safe, and there's no truth to it. And all these people keep posting me links to that. And I'm like, oh, you investigated yourselves and found you did nothing wrong? Boy, that's such a new one for cops.
Yeah.
I am so shocked.
Yeah, no way.
You know, and then
I'm
there's
just gonna totally believe what you just said, because I've never heard anything like that before.
and then there's other places like in Dallas. In Dallas, there's a video from some BLM supporters in front of like this high price, high quality shopping area in Dallas, and there's a random pallet of bricks sitting there.
There's no construction going on anywhere near it.
No construction going on anywhere near it. Just somebody delivered a pallet of bricks in front of these high-end businesses.
Dropping off like pallets of fucking weapons in alleyways in like Chicago and shit that I've heard about before.
Or Northern
that, like,
Ireland.
Shit, yeah.
Well, Northern Ireland doesn't need anybody to provide us weapons.
Yeah, well,
we
not
can
anymore.
build those ourselves, but.
But I mean, it's like, you know, if you engineer a protest, I mean, and then kind of piggyback on people's sentiment of like being tired of being locked down, it's perfect.
Yeah, when you control, when you manipulate their emotional outrage.
Yeah, and then you
and
can.
everybody has a mask now, so people can stay anonymous. Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, did you guys see, so from Madison, right near me, I mean, it's like an hour and a half drive, southeast of me, is Wisconsin's state capital, Madison, which has had some riots and things on State Street, which is called a street, but you can't actually drive down it. It's foot traffic only, and it's all these shops and stuff. Well, there was rioting, and there was a bunch of looting, and a picture came out of the people who started the looting, and it's a pair of upper middle class white girls, like college age white girls, who actually started smashing windows and started the looting.
I'm not surprised. Are there like high end shops there, like Louis Vuitton?
Oh yes.
And
yep, there's Urban Outfitters is down there. There's a Coach is down there. It's all very high end stores along State. It's a place that I would never shop because I'm not going to pay that kind of money for that crap. But
it's not crap. It lasts decades. You can leave it in your will to your children.
Yeah.
Put the brick down. Calm down.
I don't
but
need bricks. I got a closet full
I
of
can
that
pass
shit.
on to my children too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's but that's, I mean, and that came out, and the best part is, it not only did it come out, but thanks to Facebook's automatic facial recognition to tag people, and they have public profiles, we already know both of their names.
Nice.
Speaking of white people, did you see the I shared the photo. I know I shared the photo, but the when they went into Target that first night, there's like 8 or 7 or 8 guys right there, and they're breaking into one of the self-serve kiosks. And then like in the back on the right is this tall, skinny white guy with a blue mask, and his arms are full of Legos, boxes of Legos.
Yep.
Like,
hey, those Lego sets are expensive, especially the Lego Star Wars sets. That shit is fucking pricey.
And the best part is that you know that guy isn't stealing them to resell them, right? He just really wants to build those sets.
Yeah. He's been waiting. He's been like fucking waiting and saving up to add this set to his collection. And he was like, fuck it. And ran
No,
into Target and
I'm
grabbed.
gonna go get these.
Let's see.
He's like, I got just enough room in Mom's basement to fucking build these. I don't know all my other Legos.
That's the guy right there in the back. You can.
Yeah.
He's got. Come on, focus.
Yeah.
He's got a.
You can see. I mean, yeah. I saw it going around.
Yeah, and I love the
And then
caption. Enough about all of this. Random. I want to know more about the white guy who braved a pandemic and racial stereotypes to go loot a bunch of Lego sets.
Yeah, from Target.
For our time.
He's not the hero that we needed, but
he's the hero we got.
He's the hero we deserved.
Him and the guy that stole it from the police.
Yeah, that guy. Let's get on to that. Let's jump on to that. One of the things I really wanted to bring up tonight was we'll get to the police station burning and the police cars burning and whatnot. And I kind of ran it past Andrew a little bit. We talked about it, but all these people that are doing this to the police and doing this to the government, like this is modern day counting coup.
Right. The people who are just like, I fucking took this because you can't stop me. Look.
Yep.
See what I did?
Yeah, and I don't want that to be confused with like supporting the looting, because I definitely do not support the looting of.
But it
mom
is
and
funny.
pop shops.
It's fucking funny, and we're gonna laugh about it.
So,
when you're taking like stealing cop cars and shit,
you paid for it.
Take into account the whole psychological effect of the crowd on people, because like Gustave Le Bon talked about it, Aldous Huxley talked about it, and when people get in crowd situations, like mob mentality, there's a sense of anonymity that comes along with it, where you're not going to be like, fingered for being the person responsible, because you're in such a fucking wide crowd of people that are just doing all kinds of crazy shit.
Right. So it's like, safety in numbers. They can't arrest us all. Yeah.
It almost like masks their identity in a way. But I just read an article how they're using the tracing app for the coronavirus to track.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah.
But don't worry, it's totally just about the virus, guys. It's for your safety.
So all right.
They haven't been.
Yeah, I got called fucking crazy not 1 week ago for telling somebody not to download the fucking app because they will use it for things other than tracing the fucking virus.
Well, I mean, you think about it, right? And I'm like thinking about like all these people that are contact tracers, like applying for this job, and I'm like, have you guys ever heard of the Thousanders in fucking Bolshevik Russia? They like went after they signed up with the fucking Bolshevik government and went after the kulaks, like they were government informants, like just regular citizens.
Well, yeah, that's exactly how all those tyrannies work. They can't possibly actually monitor everybody on their own, so they have to get all of the citizens to inform on everybody else.
Yeah. The government doesn't want to force you to obey. They want you to want to obey.
Yep,
yeah, and we've never seen governments use that for fucking evil purposes before.
So, all right, back to this counting coup. Counting coup, it's not really common anymore, but common coup, is to touch or strike an enemy warrior, leave him alive, and then escape unarmed. Also, Rick's involved stealing the enemy's weapons or horses tied up to his lodge in camp. Risk or injury of death is required to count coup. After a battle, exploit people of the tribe would gather together and recount their acts of bravery. And then...
well, it's exactly the same thing that World War II soldiers effectively did, like American soldiers, when they brought back Lugers that had been found on German officers, and they brought back, German weapons and things. That was them counting coup. Like every culture does it.
The ear necklace in fucking Universal Soldier,
Yeah, exactly. It's a trophy of like, look at what, I took this guy down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Look. I had the courage, I had the bravery, I had the means, I had the strength. I went and did this. This is my story of what I did to my enemy.
Feats of bravery and daring.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
rural teenagers even have that, where to a lesser extent, where
slap
with
the ball.
this. Well, yeah, or stealing road signs, like when you steal stop signs or road signs and stuff as a teenager. See, yeah, no, you don't know. But that's like
Can't say I haven't done that.
We didn't even steal
Yeah.
them. We just throw them in a field like 100 yards away. Where,
that's even worse. Like that's just wasteful.
No, I mean, because then they'd find
No,
it and put it
High-
back up,
High
and then they'd try
High
to
Street-
secure it better, and we'd steal it again, and
High Street is like 2 blocks that way. I'm just saying.
nice.
I used to live on a high street.
I always
Is that
live
its
on a high
name, or was
street.
it just the people who lived there that?
Yeah.
Well, what I want to say real quick is that, like, I just find it really weird that, like, the people that go into, like, the Michigan State House to protest with, firearms on them are considered, white supremacist Nazis, but then the people that are, minorities that are rioting and looting and shit, I'm not saying it's all minorities, but a large majority of people in those cities are minorities.
Angry protesters, and they're
Yeah.
disenfranchised.
They're not protesting, they're voicing their frustration. It's their First Amendment right to free speech.
Yeah, you gotta
Right.
look
It's
at
like-
who is saying that.
Okay. The Democrats.
Well, yeah, it's.
But
the-
it's
the
also-
left.
Also, I want people to fucking recognize which group got treated with respect and which group is not being treated with respect. The ones
there's-
who were
there's-
armed were
there's
treated with
also-
respect.
Yeah, exactly. And
this is-
that's a big difference.
Not
is
only that, but
armed.
there's a huge reason that these agent provocateurs exist, right? If you can alter a movement, or you can destroy the public perception of a movement,
Yeah.
then you can control the narrative.
Yeah.
Well, that's
We saw that with Occupy Wall Street.
yeah. Well, that's what COINTELPRO has always done.
Show and tell, bro.
Yeah.
Agent provocateurs, and
Yeah.
there's a huge difference between the protesters and these looters and rioters.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
We agree on that. There's the message
Yep.
senders, and then there's the people that, well, they're essentially the destroyers.
Well,
I
Well,
not
and
only that-
agent provocateurs, they
Protesters,
you don't need tons of them.
Mm-hmm.
the gripe with the protesters are that they're making it about a racial thing,
Right.
like in terms of like the police, because it's the only time that it gets reported on the police killing somebody is if it's a white black person, not if it's a black cop on a black person or a Latino cop on a black person or anything like that. It's always to show the divide between whites and minorities.
Yeah. Black cop on a white
Okay,
person.
we
well,
have to make it
again,
black
again,
versus
there's-
white, not blue versus you.
Well, again,
That's what
there's
I'm
an
saying,
there's
like,
an
always-
there's an
and, like,
agenda
people
there's an
kill
agenda to
cops.
push there.
Kill white cops. Yeah, well, of course there is.
Uh-huh.
Because they want everybody divided, fighting amongst themselves instead of fighting against the people that are trying to rule over them.
Well, yeah, which
And
is
they-
why even though you have photos, many photos of blacks and whites standing together during these protests, of Boogaloo Boys running security at protests now, that's starting
Yeah.
to happen, of all of these things. And there's, like, you look at that photo, look at the photo that they used with the 4 armed rednecks.
Mhm.
They were protecting that tobacco shop before the cops forced them off of it, and
Yeah.
then it got looted.
Dudes in the picture.
What?
I said they cropped out the dudes in the picture, the other guys in the picture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so there were 4 of them. 2 of them were white, 2 of them were black, and they only showed the 2 white ones being armed standing out there and ignored the fact
Yeah.
that there was also 2 black ones because they had to push that narrative.
Yeah, they don't want to show solidarity.
Yeah,
They want to,
because
people are past the bullshit that they're trying to sell everybody and say, because I've seen multiple people on like CNN, like they'd be like, oh, it's not about black versus white or whatever. It's about fucking like they're killing everybody. Like you know what I mean? It's not about like just like
Yeah, that's what the
Even
protesters
white-
say. That's what the people
that's what
say.
some of them are saying.
Mhm.
Absolutely, but then you got other protesters that are saying like shoot white people, which I do not agree with. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
like
No,
that'd be this saying shoot somebody else because of the color of their skin.
Yeah,
Like
and-
that's not right.
and those could be plants. They could be agent provocators. They could be
Oh,
COINTELPRO.
well,
Right,
but I
and,
mean-
and
We
But
can
that's-
we can
well,
we
not-
can we can
either.
go we can go totally tinfoil with this, and who controls the media, right? It's like 5 corporations.
only
Yeah,
all, those,
absolutely.
all 5 of those corporations. We can go to Bilderberg. We can go even beyond that, and
Yeah. I mean,
go,
those
go
guys
full,
could easily
full
be
tinfoil
CIA.
bodysuits.
Yeah.
yeah, and don't
What I'm
I
saying
mean,
though is that like people need to see through the bullshit that they're trying to like sell as a divide tool and like really get on the same page if we're gonna make a fucking change in this country.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you want to get rid of the people who are actually oppressing you, the people who are actually responsible for this. You need to recognize that they are oppressing all of us.
Yes.
They are doing it to all of us, not just some people. Well, yes, largely the if you're black, statistically in America, you are far more likely to be arrested for petty crimes. You're far more likely to be arrested for drug crimes. You're far more likely to be beaten during a police encounter. Like, those are just statistical realities, yes, but you need to realize that doesn't mean that you're the only ones. Kelly Thomas was white.
Yeah.
Like,
Duncan Lemp.
Duncan Lemp. White. Got murdered. Like, in his sleep. Got murdered.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't... And that's the other thing, too, is you'll notice that because largely so many of these minorities are not armed to the level that white people tend to be in this country, what you see is very much more a beating death or some sort of, submission death with people of minorities, whereas white people, they just assassinate us from outside the house while we're asleep.
Yeah.
Because they're cowards.
Yeah. Kelly Thomas, 2011. Like, he was beat to death by 6 officers. And, like, 4 of those officers were minorities. 3 of the officers went up on charges. They were found not guilty. And the police, the police lawyer actually said that Kelly Thomas beat himself to death by resisting arrest.
I did not see that.
Yeah.
Well, then they got their jobs back.
And
you can shoot somebody who's crawling down a fucking hallway.
Daniel Shaver, the cop that killed Daniel Shaver. That cop claimed PTSD and is on disability now because of the stress he had to go through of murdering that guy and the pending trial afterwards, again, in which he was totally found not guilty.
Did he get his job back?
No, he got his job back for a day so that he could file for
disability.
The disability.
I mean, if the whole lockdown thing didn't bring it to people's, the forefront of people's minds that these people are willing to be extremely tyrannical pricks to take all your fucking freedoms away in the name of keeping the, for the collective good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It should be by now.
That's the thing with that is a lot of people understand that the government is tyrannical and it is oppressive. The issue is that 99% of those people that know that think they can change it.
Yeah,
from the inside.
They want to control the thing that is oppressing.
They want to fix it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Talking about you too, Libertarian Party.
Yeah.
Don't think you're getting off.
Well, it's the same.
You're not going to fix it because it already runs exactly how it's fucking supposed to run. That's what government fucking does.
Sociopath or psychopath, then it might work. Who knows?
Yeah.
Just a kinder, gentler sociopath.
Exactly. Like communists never really been tried.
Longer chains.
Yeah, exactly. Just,
what was that page Lou ran? Campaign for longer leashes.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it is. You know what I mean? It's like people got taken 10 steps back with the whole lockdown bullshit, and then it's like they allow you 1 step forward, and you're like, "Thank you, master, for a little bit of my freedom back."
Yeah.
It's fucking insane that people have been able to be this socially engineered.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling to me how the world changed in a matter of 2 months, and people were just accepting of it.
Well, yeah. If anarchists had a 12-year, 15,000-hour mandatory education program, we'd be free in a generation.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to continue that because then the future generations will probably get complacent.
Yeah.
Kind of a continual like Thomas Jefferson said about the whole thing. It's it's like it's like an eternal struggle for
hard times create hard men create good times create soft men. Yeah.
Well, I've listening
soft
to
men
the
create hard times.
version of The Fourth Turning by Neil Strauss, and well, Strauss and Howe, I forget the guys' first names, but they talked about how there's like a generational like cycle within every 4 generations. There's a crisis, and then after that crisis, it's kind of like a reset, and then like society experiences a new like high, like renaissance after that crisis period. And it's like they can almost like time it when it's going to happen.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, or the Cornerstone logo. If you've seen the Cornerstone logo that's going around with the triangle, and it's not quite completed, and it says "You are here," and it's got revolution, freedom, tyranny, and then it's coming back over, and it says "You are here."
Yeah.
That's how it happens, because it's like, you know, if you're not constantly like in that eternal struggle for liberty, you know what I mean? It's like it's just gonna fall to the side. It's not something that you can just like attain and then it's there and you just like as long as you hold on to it, you know.
And
however tenuous-
even democracy never lasts, you know, more than 200 years or whatever. So America is pushing it. Like America is in like decrepit old age for this shit. It's just it's completely fucking just rotting now. It's like a corpse.
Well, you can see that in France. You can see where right after the French Revolution that people had a lot more freedoms and there was a lot more economic opportunity and all of these things. And then very quickly it started imploding on itself, and then you wind up
decadent and
and you wind up with Napoleon.
Yeah.
You wind up with an emperor, and you know, and then you finally get rid of him, and then it's okay for a very short span of time, and then it's imploding again. And look at France now. Look at how tyrannical things are in France.
Yeah.
Oh, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they have like a 75% income tax for their top fucking tax bracket.
Jesus Christ.
You have to understand that like the globalist faction within the elites, they use like, you know, mass migration and diversity as a fucking hammer to destroy societies, in the sense that you can't hold together an extremely diverse society with multiculturalism ingrained in it, or try to ingrain it in a society, without having a police state to back it up. That's
Right.
like fact. Because like there's this guy Robert Putnam who did a study in 2007, and he said that diverse societies and multicultural societies are usually lower trust societies, because there's so many different factions within the society that, like, you know, people kind of like stick to their own group, and like people kind of have a wary eye of everybody else. And it's like, whether people want to be colorblind or not, people do. I mean, I wouldn't say everybody of every race does this, but a lot of people within different races, they view things through a racial lens.
Well, yeah, there's
So it's
and
like
that can be through social engineering.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? They're raised in a culture and in a environment that fosters that sort of thought pattern.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Like the hyper awareness of racial issues and things like that is just as bad as completely fucking ignoring them, in my opinion.
Yeah, pretending that they don't exist. I mean, that's one of those things where, like, I mean, you know, and I hate when people are like, "Oh, that's your was it the cultural appropriation? You're culturally appropriating this thing." Like, that drives me nuts. Like, no, I should be free to enjoy things of other people's cultures and things like that.
What happened to imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Yeah,
right.
What the hell? Like, look at, you know, and you know how many things from Irish culture have been appropriated? Do we, bitch? No, we never complained. We're like, hey, cool, awesome, great. I love the availability of Irish stew and fish and chips and everything. That's fantastic. I love that.
Everybody loves whiskey.
The federal government named attack ships after tribes. Okay.
Yeah.
The federal government, which destroyed an entire ethnicity of people, and then names attack ships after them.
Cruise missiles, Apache helicopters.
Yeah.
Name it. You know what I mean? It's fucking peak irony.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and yet, so like I despise that, but I also think that it's ridiculous to pretend that there aren't differences in cultures, because there are things that, like, if I go, because there's a huge Hmong population here in La Crosse, and if I go into a Hmong household, there are things that I have to be aware of that are going to upset them that wouldn't necessarily upset me, but I need to be aware of that and cognizant of that so that I don't accidentally do some sort of a faux pas that pisses them off.
Right.
And that's just a cultural difference, and it's okay to acknowledge cultural differences. Hating people for their culture, that's an issue.
We can even talk about cultural differences without even talking about different ethnicity.
Right.
Right.
But pretending
the culture of an East Coast blue liberal is entirely is a hell of a lot different than a Midwestern.
Oh yeah,
culture.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Right? I mean,
many different American cultures.
And Dan has
New
now
Jersey.
met Pacific Northwest liberals, and they're
Yeah.
very different than New York
Crunchy
liberals.
lips.
New York,
Yeah.
you met New York liberals and freaking Wyoming.
Yeah.
Come on now.
Oh yeah, I mean even people who are considered conservative.
Like put it like this. Wyoming has a law on the books. They have constitutional carry, right? But you have to be a resident of the state for 6 months before you can open carry. And that is because they want you to constitutional carry because it scares the fuck out of tourists.
That's great. Keep them out.
Yeah.
All those freaking the Asians, the people that come over from Japan and China on the tour buses to go see Yellowstone and get ran over by a fucking bison. They freak out when they see guns because the culture over there in Japan and in Asia, the firearms culture is a hell of a lot different than it is in rural Wyoming. Like they have to put signs up. They have to put no trespassing signs in some parts of the state in multiple languages because people don't understand property rights in other parts of this world, in other cultures. They don't think that people should own 100 acres or even 50 acres or even 20 acres. And they go into these fields and like try to get close to people's animals, like the cows and the farmed bison and
oh my
and
god,
all these, like the elk and shit.
I love that people getting close to farm bison that are then shocked when they're gored, like because it's a bison.
There was a story several years ago of a Japanese couple that put honey on their daughter's head because they thought it would be a cool picture to see a bear licking their daughter's head.
Oh Jesus!
Oh my
God.
You can guess how that ended.
Yeah.
I don't want to know. I would imagine horribly.
Graphically.
Yeah, don't tell me.
But yeah, the point of what I was saying is that like basically when you have a very mixed society, you need to please and maintain it.
When you have a forced mixed society.
Well,
Right.
yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's kind of a natural, like, you know, like coalescing,
Yeah.
then I would imagine there would be no reason to hold it together with force. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because it just happened organically. But when
Right.
you know,
But like ethnically, culturally diverse nations and communities are not the norm in human history. And every time we see them, like the Roman Empire, it only worked for as long as it did because of the Roman legion.
The Austro-Hungarian Empire in World War I, there's a reason that imploded on itself.
Look what the British Empire did to Central Africa.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Look at what the British and the French did with Sykes-Picot in the Middle East, and we're still reaping that.
yeah,
Trying to go, let's...
that empire, yeah.
Yeah, let's just ignore all of the tribal differences between all of these different, very tribal peoples. Let's just go ahead and carve this up in a way that we've arbitrarily decided, oh, look, they're all at war. Like,
I think, though, that if you look back at history, they did that intentionally because they wanted to sow sectarian violence. Because you know what I mean? They figured they could further balkanize them through that method was to lop off whatever and then just have those like warring tribes like within a certain region and then have them war amongst each other.
So it weakens resistance.
Yep, because it keeps everybody weak.
For us to keep the war machine going.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and it keeps everybody weak, and it allows them to go after oil, which was becoming a very big thing at the end of World War I. And they were like, okay, well, how can we guarantee access to oil? Well, the way that we do that is we make sure that the Middle East is constantly unstable, and that way we can kind of just go in whenever we need to. Because remember, the two biggest oil producers, especially at the end of World War I, were the United States And coming into the fore was Venezuela.
Yeah.
Yep.
And between the two of us, we have more oil reserves than the entire Middle East does.
Oh, yeah.
Way more.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, especially if you allow drilling up an Anwar.
Yeah, but I mean,
not
even
only
without
that, the U.S. is currently a net producer. Like
Yeah.
the U.S. has so much oil right now that it exports.
Yeah, we export tons and tons and tons of oil.
That's why we're talk shit to Saudi Arabia and whatnot now.
Oh yeah, because what are they gonna do about it? We'll cut off your oil.
Feed you.
Yeah, they fucking dried up.
What are you gonna do? Fly some more planes into buildings?
Can you afford the gas to do that? Really?
Saudi Arabia.
Hashtag bad joke is bad. All right.
Yeah. You gonna do another 9/11? You got 9/11 money? The gas money?
Went up.
Trump will give him a discount like George did.
We don't need to go overseas for 9/11. We got 9/11 at home.
Yeah.
The 9/11 at home looks out the window.
Yeah.
There's buildings on fire still.
It's just pictures of Minneapolis burning to the fucking ground.
The extra fires. All right, let's circle back around before we got. I don't know. That wasn't even a derailing. That was a derailing and a tornado, and I did. There were sharks in there at some point. All right, let's circle back around to this counting the coup idea.
Okay.
I see a lot of discussion on Facebook among anarchists, non-anarchists, but definitely between anarchists and anarchists about the destruction of the violence against the police, the destruction of police property, the cars, the SUVs, the police station against the police officers themselves, saying how that is a non-ethical position or is a non-ethical act, non-moral act.
Bullshit. That's public property, and I'm the public.
Yeah,
I can destroy my own fucking property if I want.
Okay, I knew you were going to say that, and the counter argument is, if that is public property, then that is other people's property also.
Yeah, but I got to first.
Yeah.
I got to first.
Finders keepers.
Like if somebody sets out a giant crate of ears of corn free to take, and therefore that's for everybody, right? That's everybody's. And I show up with a pallet jack and take the entire crate of corn. Well, one, I'm an asshole, but ignoring that, the bottom line is I didn't steal from anybody else. I just got there before you did.
Right. Yep.
A bird gets the pallet of corn.
Yeah. And that was the word that I used when I posted the tweet about the guy stealing the police horse. I used the word homesteaded, right?
Yeah.
Because the government has no right to own that property.
Squatters'
right?
rights.
Squatters' rights. That property, that horse, that police station, that vehicle, whatever, was bought and paid for by goods and services stolen from people.
Yeah, it's stolen goods.
So
it has no legitimate owner.
Yeah, so taking that horse, burning those police cars, burning that police station.
It's actually there's some historical reference for that, because so at the end of World War II, right after the Nazi Germany government had completely imploded and capitulated and effectively ceased to exist, a lot of local Germans even went out and looted a bunch of stuff that they had, including the main example that comes to mind is this really big statue of a horse that Hitler had personally had commissioned.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's this big statue of a horse, and somebody stole it. You got to appreciate the balls on any person who steals like a 15-foot tall marble statue of
and
a
the
horse.
logistical skills. Like, that's serious logistics.
Right.
Holy shit. But so he stole it. This guy stole it. I'm not sure how. And wound up selling it on the market, and it went to somebody, and it was somebody's garden. And then there was a big legal hubbub a few years ago because the German government was arguing, well, but it's theirs. It belongs to the German people. But my question, though, is, but the government had ceased to exist. If the government claims ownership for this and the government collapses and ceases to exist, whose is it?
Finders,
no one's.
keepers, losers, sweepers.
Yeah, it's finders, keepers at that point. Anyone can just take it because no one owns it anymore. It's nobody's. It's nobody's and it's everybody's. So whoever gets to it first, it's theirs.
Yep.
It was homesteaded.
Yeah.
Right? So
he counted coup on it. I mean, the guy who ultimately wound up with it was a British general.
Nice.
He managed to get his hands on it. He bought it from the guy, shipped it home. It was in a garden in Britain.
God, imagine how much that would have cost to ship.
I imagine he probably used a lot of military connections to do it.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, you'd have to look up the story and look up the picture to really appreciate.
Klinger sent home no, it wasn't Klinger. It was the other guy sent home the whole Jeeps in pieces from Korea through the mail.
There's actually, I saw a collector. I was in a military vehicle collection years ago that's in Minnesota, ironically, where you can drive tanks and stuff. But they have an original Willis Jeep, the way that they were shipped to Europe. It's a pack and play. It's a giant crate that has all of the parts for the Jeep in like zip tied inside of this crate. As all of the parts, and then all you got to do is pull them apart, and it comes with instructions.
Some assembly required.
Yeah, and you just put the whole thing together. So if you disassemble a Jeep, it's actually clearly fairly easy.
It's like
to
a fucking IKEA Jeep.
Yeah. I may or may not be aware of an alleged theft of a golden tree sculpture from one of Saddam's palaces that was shipped home allegedly in MRE containers.
Yeah, allegedly.
I have no personal knowledge of this whatsoever. I had nothing to do with it. I don't know.
They totally didn't have like dump trucks full of gold either.
Yeah, no, none of that. I mean, that's no, this thing was solid gold, and it was on the wall of a palace, and it was like 13 feet long, and gold's very soft, so it's fairly easy to cut. And it was cut down and supposedly put into the bags. For
used MRE bags.
Yeah, and then those were just taped shut and put all back together and then shipped home piece by piece by piece, and eventually everybody who might have been involved wound up with several chunks of a solid gold sculpture from Saddam's palace.
Nice.
That became Camp Victory. Yeah, allegedly.
There's no history of the military doing things like that. Like, they didn't ship home heroin from Vietnam and people's corpses.
Yeah.
Entertainment purposes only.
Yeah, it definitely didn't happen. Or
no occupying force in history has ever looted and sent it home.
Oh yeah. And generally, up until pretty much the 20th century, the late 20th century, it was regarded as fair game.
Yeah.
It's if you conquered it, you kept it. You know, that's one of the reasons why like the right of conquest is something that I always kind of bring up is it has to exist at some point. In terms of like there has to be a point where right of conquest does in fact actually exist, because otherwise there's no logical basis for property ownership, period.
Yeah.
So
that's one of the arguments that they talk about with when they talk about Native American rights here in the US is like, oh, they were conquered people, blah 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 blah, right? Well, the police abandoned that station.
Yep, they left.
They jumped in their van and the cruisers and drove through the fence to get out of there.
Yep.
That sounds like abandoned property to me.
Yep.
They left
it. Seems to be a common theme through watching like a lot of these videos. Like the cops abandoned like a bunch of cars in Philadelphia that were like in a row in the middle of like a fucking like main street, and like people were just lighting them on fire and jumping on the windshields and everything else. And I'm like, this doesn't seem right. Like, you know, normally the cops
destroy
would be,
it? Just like strip it down and fucking you have a car that runs.
Well, you grab the motors if nothing else. Those police interceptor motors are valuable.
To me, it almost seems like some of these precincts are letting it happen to kind of send a statement of like, you know, we're gonna
Well, it's
I think there's different warring factions behind the scenes. To be quite honest with you, like there's some factions that want to save the United States. Some want to see it collapse and fucking I've heard some extreme like arms of the faction on the fucking real bad side that like want another Holodomor to take place in the United States, and they're gonna come sweep through with the Chinese troops and shit. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
And there's
I don't know
always
what-
a faction that wants more fucking control, that wants a more aggressive police state and military, like fucking, yeah. There's always people that want totalitarianism too.
They all want more. They all want more control. That's what it is. But
yeah.
Well,
a lot of things like that, like abandoning the cop cars and abandoning the police station and let them be destroyed, like that's narrative control.
Yeah.
Like they can show that on TV again and again and again and again for the next 25 years. Like they can milk that cow as long as they have 9/11.
Absolutely. That kind of goes back to that whole thing with the in 1984, how he said that you don't install a dictatorship to prevent a revolution. You start a revolution to install a dictatorship.
Right.
And that's what history shows repeatedly.
Yeah.
Revolutions don't result in more free, or rarely result in more freedom. They usually result in some sort of a dictator. And we also see that in Africa. Look at all of these countries in Africa which had dealt with being colonial powers and controlled by foreign powers for so long, and as soon as they get rid of them, they install one dictator after another endlessly, because it was a revolution. It wasn't a shift in any kind of belief in self-determination in any. No, everyone still wanted someone to tell them what to do.
They just wanted it to be their guy telling them what to do. Yeah,
well,
that's literally what the United States has done in Iraq, again and again and again. Oh, and Afghanistan again and again and again, and Libya and Syria,
and like
man, Iraq's so bad about
South
it.
America.
And like all of Central America.
Yeah, but I mean, and Americans don't realize just how bad Iraq is, and the fact that Saddam, the whole reason he wound up in power, is because America was trying to clean up America's mess in the first fucking place.
Oh yeah,
slapped him there.
Didn't the U.S. government didn't the U.S. government put the leaders in Iran into place?
No, that was
the previous leader.
They overthrew Mossadegh and installed the Shah, and then the Shah ruled until the Iranian Revolution in '79, and then after that, the mullahs have pretty much been in control since then.
Okay.
Yeah, and the Iranian Revolution was a large response. Was a revolution in response to a government that was clearly a puppet government.
Yeah, and Iran before the Iranian Revolution, though, Iran was rather cosmopolitan, actually.
It was really cosmopolitan. It was really very
1950s America.
Yeah, it was classically liberal, very largely, where you had a lot of economic freedom. There are photos from the beaches with women in bikinis and things, and
women wearing a blouse and a short skirt to their classes, to their university classes and shit. I mean,
pictures like that in Afghanistan though too. Like, what I mean? And they install these like backwards fucking, theocratic rulers and shit.
Yeah, and meanwhile, when you get to the north part of Afghanistan, when you start hitting Kurdish-held territory, and the Kurds really have only mildly given a shit about anybody who's claimed to be in charge their entire existence. Like, yeah, okay, buddy. And I love the Kurds. I really do. I loved all the time I've spent with it. They're so amazing. And like, you look at the Kurds, and the Kurds haven't had a revolution. The Kurds haven't gotten super involved in any of this global politics crap. There are theme parks operating in Kurdistan right now in northern Iraq that have been operating since the 70s. Yeah, despite all of the wars and everything else, because it's the Kurds, they just kind of kept going because they didn't need. And the Kurds have such little government; they almost have none. Like, you are free to kind of do whatever you do, and look at how good they've done.
That's YPG territory, right?
YPG and PPG are northern Iraq. They're Kurdistan area. You really don't see it in Afghanistan at all. The northeastern part of Iran, too, has quite a bit. That's like Rojava.
Uh-huh.
That's got a little bit, and there's a huge difference between the YPG and PPG too. But
Yeah, pretty much from like what, northeast, like Iran to southeast Turkey.
Yeah, it's actually Kurdistan. If Kurdistan was its own country, it would actually be really, really big. That's controlled, but it's largely fractional because of the country borders that are involved, and those country borders do actually kind of hinder movement of Kurds from one place to another. But again, with the Kurds, like any people, within them there are factions. There are different groups of people who have different aims. It's the same thing with the YPG and the PPG, where one wants freedom and the other one's kind of a communist revolutionary force. They work together occasionally, but just like China, China, World War II, during the Japanese invasion, where you had Chiang Kai-shek and then you had Mao Zedong, and they would work together occasionally. They had this uneasy kind of alliance where they were like, well, let's just get rid of all these assholes first, and then we'll fight it out after that between ourselves, but let's worry about them first. And you kind of see a lot of that with the YPG and PPG, and it gets really complicated. And
yeah, I was just talking about that earlier, about how like Chiang Kai-shek was like basically like the more nationalist one, and Mao was more of an internationalist.
Yeah, well, and Chiang Kai-shek was very definitely a Chinese nationalist. It was the Chinese Nationalist Party that was kind of behind his whole thing. But he was still different than, he had very much different goals than Mao Zedong, but they were still Chinese, and they were still fighting for a China that hadn't been occupied by Japan. So, it's the same thing in Kurdistan, and you see the same thing in the protesters and rioters and stuff now, where there are very definite different factions, and you can't really apply end goals to any one group.
Oh yeah, no, there's definitely different factions within that whole overarching theme there.
Hey, we should talk about strippers now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think like if it goes anywhere, I think the United States is gonna kind of split up.
Hold on, is this the beginning of Cloward Piven?
I think
beginning?
So. Well,
I think we're already partway into it.
Started, yeah. I think they're trying to complete the goal, essentially, if they want to transform the United States into a communist totalitarian, state.
Yeah. To me, this feels like they got their second wind. It feels like the big push.
Well, yeah, because you had the start of it, a lot of major start of it with the lockdowns and all of that stuff, and encouraging people to report other people for not social distancing and not wearing masks, and you started to lay that groundwork there. And now you have we have this violence that we have to put down, and you're seeing it with Trump going, well, I'm going to deploy terrible weapons and dangerous dogs or something to the people who are peaceful protesting in front of the White House. It's and then encouraging the governors to deploy National Guard and use them, and threatening to deploy MPs to these areas. And it's very clearly on the Cloward Piven roadmap that we're on right now. That's a definite thing.
All right, Derek, I want strippers.
Yeah, I want strippers.
Okay, article from Yahoo.
We're already at 10:30, so
yeah, like an hour and 15 in, we've done one article.
Two, I think.
Strippers work to take back the power while clubs are shuttered during the pandemic. Christina Villegas, 21, has been working in a strip club in her hometown Chicago since she was 18, using the money she makes from dance on stage, accompanying men to champagne rooms, giving lap dances to cover her bills, to comfortably pay her rent and fund her increasingly lavish lifestyle. But the coronavirus hit the United States in early March. Vigilantes started to see a downturn in both the customers frequenting the club where she works and the amount of money that she was making per night. Then the club closed its doors in accordance with the state protocol. Quote, I was very concerned about contracting the virus and potentially spreading it to others. The club is not an essential business, and its close contact jobs of the coronavirus closing down the club left all the dancers without the large source of income. According to YouTube video, Bludgies posted April 4th to her channel, which has garnered an audience of 1.35 million subscribers, documenting her life as a stripper. The young women can make anywhere from $5,000 to $26,000 a month working 5 nights a week at the club.
Jesus.
As long as it's been closed.
I'm in the wrong business.
Holy crap.
That club has been, that income has been obsolete. Blah, 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 blah. She said she supports herself, blah, 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 merchandise and all that. A lot of dancers have picked up other jobs at essential businesses, or they have started their OnlyFans account or a webcam.
Hashtag OnlyFans.
Yeah.
Unlike the transition to digital-only work that many industries have made during this difficult time, strippers face an uphill battle against mainstream social media platforms flagging their content and banning their accounts under the rationale that it violates community guidelines. That is something that Justin LeBoy, a former professional basketball player and social entrepreneur, encountered when he stumbled into the world of virtual strip clubs and started his own. 28-year-old New York native tells Yahoo Life that his life experience with nightclub. Okay, when it shut down, he missed the atmosphere of the clubs he frequented and decided to recreate it on social media. Fortunately, he has a large audience made up of more than 60,000 followers, made up of mostly women as a result of a meme account he formerly ran. Quote, I went on Instagram Live. I was bored like everybody else. I love to go out. I love the nightlife, and it wasn't an option. So I went live for my first time. Women were like calling in and trying to go live, and I finally answered. These girls started dancing, and some of the women just started taking their clothes off. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. We can't do this for free.
I love that reaction.
So, hold on. And then the boy says he asked all 6 or 7 women who danced the night for their Cash App username to be pinned in the comment section so the live stream, so people turning in could send them tips. Some of the women received upwards of $4,000 from dancing for just a couple of minutes.
Wow.
The next day, I had like 300 DMs from women asking if they could come on the show because they heard about the money that the other women made.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So basically what it goes on is they created literally digital strip clubs, and one of the big ones, the guy's business partner is Justin Dior Combs, Sean Diddy Combs' son. Charges a virtual door fee starting at $5 and want access to exclusive content in the live shows. Beyond that payment, LeBoy says that all the money brought in goes to the dancers, or brought in by the dancers goes directly to these women.
You know, wasn't Sean Combs on fucking Epstein's flight log?
Probably.
I don't know.
He might have been. He's rich now.
But
all right, that's all I gotta say.
They literally created virtual strip clubs with a $5 door charge, and these women are making $4,000 a night.
Nice.
I know a few women who have like OnlyFans and do some stripping and stuff, and they make really remarkably large amounts of money. Like normally, like, I mean, really remarkably large, where I'm like, how did you buy yet another $40,000 truck? And like just constantly buying, how the hell? But man, I mean, when you hear the numbers, like $4,000,
you gotta love technology, man.
Jesus, that is amazing. That is an incredible amount of money for a single night worth of work.
This is a market solution to a demand.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, what does that say about society that there's that many lonely dudes out there wanting to spend money on seeing a chick get over the internet?
You got to remember these guys have been, a lot of the people doing this, they've been locked down for the last 2 months.
Yeah, they've been in lockdown. Even if they wanted to go date a real woman, they couldn't.
And
So
they,
they're like,
and they got
just
those
so desperate.
Donald Trump bucks.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
so desperate for boobs. Just so desperate. They're crawling on their knees through the desert. Boobs. Boobs.
The funny thing is, like, the lockdown didn't really change shit for me. Like, I've been living this way for a while. You know what I mean? The only
Yeah,
thing
me
that
too.
being able to bring the kids to the playground.
I
That was it.
haven't worked in 10 weeks.
When the lockdown happened and all the bars closed, my life took
Sucks.
a very dark turn. Oh, bars. Give me my bars back. They're back now. It's wonderful.
No, I heard they were going crazy once they opened them back up.
Oh, within 45 minutes, they were all packed shoulder to shoulder. It was insane.
It's like, let's go.
Yeah, everyone's like, all right, let's go now, right now. We're all get in the truck. Get in the truck. We're going. It was, although I felt really bad because last night one of my friends that lives up in Minneapolis, just outside of Minneapolis, she and like 3 of her friends for her friend's birthday came down here to La Crosse to go to the bars so that they could avoid the riots and everything there. And when they got here, as they pulled into town, we were having a massive 300 plus person protest that was going right down 3rd Street, which is where all our bars are. And, and I'm like, oh, sorry about that, guys. I'm sure it'll end by the time it really hits bar, like prime time for bar time. Most of those kids are college kids. They're all going to be at the bars.
Yep.
That's how La Crosse works.
Go to the bar, drink a bottle, fill it with gasoline, throw it in a cop.
Yeah, throw it in a cop car.
Yeah.
Me and Lindsay were just laughing about that last night too. We were laughing about how different.
Well, what was that, Dan?
Multitasking.
Multitasking. There you go.
Yeah. We were laughing about how different, like northern Wisconsin in particular, up in the North Woods, cops are than you see directly west of them in the Twin Cities. Because if you tried to organize a protest, even like or like try and start a riot in like a small town Wisconsin, you would have like 4 guys that are just like going and like throwing rocks at things. It's not anything important because that belongs to their neighbor and they don't want to piss their neighbor off. So it's just that they're throwing rocks. And the one cop in town would show up and be like, "Hey, what are you guys doing? We're rioting."
Are we really gonna do this, guys?
Yeah. Right. Oh, I understand you're really pissed off. I'm pissed off too. Let's go get we're gonna go get some beers, and we'll just come back. You know, we'll hang out here. You guys can throw some rocks at things, but let's just go have a beer first.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what would happen. And then they just go have a beer, and they just rage about it in the bar, and then they'd all go home.
1 leads to 2, 2 leads to 4. 12 beers later, let's go get pancakes.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen though? Some of the police stations are responding very, very differently to all of this. There's like in Miami, I think it was.
Something Gables.
Yeah, the cops got on their fucking knees and asked
Gables.
for forgiveness.
They knelt. They took a knee with a bunch of protesters and
for 9 minutes.
And then the sheriffs in Flint, Michigan, were out there fucking marching with the crowds.
Yep.
And all of them were like, had their arms around each other and stuff.
I think one of the things that amazes me about a lot of this is that even the Fraternal Order of Police has condemned Chauvin.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't expect that at all. I didn't expect them to condemn him, but even they were like, no, fuck that guy.
I think they have to at this point.
Mm.
Because if they the propaganda against them is so bad that they literally have to sacrifice him at this point.
Yeah.
Or they'll never be able to regain control.
There's a story going around that he committed suicide in his jail cell.
It's false, but
yeah, he's on suicide watch, and I'm like, hey, I've seen this one. I've seen this one. What does he know about the Clintons?
Yeah.
See, my
television or something with Epstein hanging out.
Yeah. See, my worry is with this is they initially said there wasn't enough evidence to arrest Chauvin.
Yeah.
Right.
Not enough evidence.
And then the first night of the protest happens, and it was largely protest and then some looting, and then the police are like, oh shit, and then they arrested him, and then the coroner comes out and says George Floyd did not die of asphyxiation.
Yeah.
He had an unknown underlying medical condition.
Yeah,
Bullshit.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
but
There wasn't enough evidence to arrest him. They arrest us with no evidence all the fucking
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, endlessly.
My worry is that this is going to end up a lot like Oscar Grant. You guys, I don't know if you guys remember him. A couple of years ago, there was a New Year's Eve. The BART train. The BART train is like our commuter train system here in the Bay Area Rapid Transit. So there was like a New Year's Eve. There was like a fight on a train or something like that. Train pulls into the station. Oscar Grant and his friends get pulled off at gunpoint. Johannes Meserly puts Oscar Grant down, and Oscar Grant, New Year's Eve, you know, he's a little up, and he's resisting, and Johannes Meserly reaches back, pulls out what he thinks is his taser, puts it into Oscar Grant's back, and pulls the trigger. Son of a bitch had his taser and his pistol on the same side.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Right. So he thought he allegedly thought he was pulling his taser, but he pulled out his service revolver or service pistol, put a shot into Oscar Grant's back, and then Oscar Grant ended up dying there. But Johannes Meserly, they initially didn't arrest him. He took off. They ended up arresting him like a week later in Las Vegas, bring him back for trial. grand jury indictment, all that good stuff. Goes to trial, and they go, they find him guilty of like involuntary manslaughter or some BS. Sentence him to 2 years. He did 11 months and got out. There was the initial rioting when it happened. There was rioting at the guilty verdict because it was such a weak
charge,
a weak guilty, and then rioting again when he got out 11 months later.
Yeah.
What we're seeing now is round one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And that's why I keep pointing out to people is remember that arrested does not mean convicted.
And convicted doesn't mean justice.
Exactly. And look at what they've already set up. They set him up, Chauvin, on third-degree murder.
Third-degree murder and manslaughter.
Yeah, and manslaughter. And the third-degree murder I actually had explained to me by a lawyer and it who's a former prosecutor, and it actually made sense when he explained it. He said, well, the reason that you charge him with third-degree murder is because in order to charge him with first-degree murder, right, with capital murder, you need to not just intent, you need to prove premeditation. You need to prove that he went into that situation with the intent of killing him, which is nigh impossible in situations like this. So that one's out. Second degree murder, he's like, there's still too much intent needed to get that one. Because he can just very easily argue, well, I didn't realize.
Yeah, for second, I think there has to be some sort of pre-existing turbulent relationship.
Yeah, and you could maybe get that out of their nightclub working together as bounce, but it's unlikely because
not against.
Who knows if they were like both dealing or something and they had a fucking falling out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem is that it would be next to impossible to actually get that.
Yeah, exactly.
So third degree murder is the only one that you can really get because it's only one step above voluntary manslaughter. And so that one you might get. And he's like, in the manslaughter's there just so that he doesn't walk, even if they don't get the third degree murder, they can at least pull that one off.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that's why it's structured the way that it is right now, is to guarantee, because the prosecutor knows that historically cops don't get convicted. And he wants to try and get him on something.
I think it was the article was from like 2018, I believe, but like the numbers were from 2017, and it was like for every 1,000 police shootings that go to a grand jury, 4 get indicted. And then like of all the actual police involvement shootings that actually go to trial, like 1% or something like that is actually found guilty.
Yeah. So just because he's arrested, don't celebrate. That ain't over yet. He can easily just walk. And if, let's say, this trial winds up taking 3 years, they're just going to give him time served and let him walk.
Yep.
And then wait for the shit to fucking pop off after that, because the media is going to fuel the shit out of that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, we're at about an hour and a half. I got one more article that I really wanted to get through, and I think we have the right crew for this one. But it's a Minneapolis riot site unlikely to see economic growth for decades.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
See that they were saying that before any of this even happened.
Yeah. In the aftermath of the Minneapolis riots, the region now risks falling into a perpetual cycle of economic blight, similar to comparable urban areas previously scarred by urban mayhem.
That can't be right. Look at all those beautiful broken windows. That's stimulates
Yeah,
the economy.
They were
Yeah, but that's
breaking
right,
windows tomorrow.
That's right for territory for people being, asking for help. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the government will be more than glad to be like, oh, sure, I'll help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flower Pippin. Yeah. In the summer of 1967, violent riots erupted and lasted for 5 days in Detroit between the city's black residents and the local police department after law enforcement raided a bar on the city's near west side. Detroit was still recovering from a previous race riot 24 years prior. Quote, it stands to reason that businesses will be far less likely to invest in areas where there's a fear of social unrest. That's presumably the biggest long-run negative effect. But there will be secondary negative effects, such as higher insurance premiums for businesses that do remain, depressed homes values for residential property, and things like that. That is
Detroit
from economy.
Is a fucking third world country at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quote, none of that detracts from the concerns about police misbehavior, of course, but it underscores that the right reaction can mostly hurt the aggrieved community.
Yeah.
Well, and with Detroit, if you really want to see a juxtaposition, look at photos from the 1950s of Detroit. Like, look at that, because that's when my grandparents lived there. Because my maternal grandfather's from Detroit originally and grew up there, and then they moved back and stuff. So I've seen a lot of photos. If you look at photos of Detroit from the 40s and 50s before all the race riots started,
it's fucking booming.
It's beautiful. It is beautiful. The buildings downtown being built are beautiful. Everything is gorgeous. And my grandparents lived.
It was like the center of automotive manufacturing. I mean, the economy was just fabulous in Detroit.
Well, yeah, and consider, so my grandparents lived on 10 Mile Road. That's where they lived, on 10 Mile Road. And the photos are just this beautiful kind of suburbia where it's all these wonderful houses and everything. There's people barbecuing, and there's all these nice cars and
like
everything.
Super fucking cliche.
Yes. It is 1950s Pleasantville.
Americana.
Yeah. And then fast forward to post-race riots and look at 8 Mile, 9 Mile, 10 Mile. And look at those neighborhoods and the wasteland that they have become and have stayed, because after the race riots, they never got a chance to recover. And then as they were finally maybe going to start recovering, that's when the economic collapse of the auto industry happened. And it's just been all downhill. And we're going to see the same thing in the Twin Cities.
Yeah. According to Crane's Detroit, U.S. Census showed that the tracks for the 1967 riot regions lost 237,000 residents between 1960 and 1980. Additionally, 64% of the city's black residents in 1967 lived in the riot areas. As a result of the 1967 riots, residents and business owners fought through red tape and faced an uphill battle when it comes to insuring their homes and businesses that lost value. Cranes puts total losses, adjusted for inflation, at between $315 million to $359 million. And that does not include missed salaries, lost sales, potential businesses, as well as personal taxes Detroit missed out on because of the destroyed businesses never returned.
Yeah. Yeah. And now Detroit it goes deeper in the fucking red every year. Because their need for social programs just completely outstrips the fucking GDP and the economic production.
Yeah, and it's never going to recover. I mean, at this point, it is literally cheaper and makes more economic sense to abandon the entire city.
Yeah.
And leave it and go somewhere else.
Well, there was there was a story just a couple years ago, where people were buying houses for $1,200, $1,500, $2,000.
Yeah.
For a whole house. Like there was, like I remember there's one company that came in and or a charity that came in, I think, and they bought like an entire block for like $100,000.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Buy it up.
that's.
I mean,
Yeah,
you
that
can
was-
just abandon Detroit and it can become like the USA homeless camp. I mean, there's all those empty homes and shit.
Well, I was talking about a few years ago when those house prices dropped as low as they did. I was saying like it would make sense to buy a couple of city blocks, wipe everything out, get everything ripped up out of there, and turn it into farmland and just start farming it again the way it used to be. Turn it back into farmland.
Urban farming is huge in Detroit. Like we can discuss that on another episode because that's a really fun thing. But
Yeah.
like, there's a lot of places where they they tore down.
They started up a program to teach kids how to do urban farming.
Yeah.
Or
Well, I don't even
like,
with the number of abandoned buildings though. I wasn't even talking about urban farming. I mean farming.
Oh yeah,
Because you can just tear them all out.
Just
Undo
bulldoze
all
the
of
whole
that.
fucking
Yeah,
city.
bulldoze
and
the
turn it
whole
back into
thing and turn it back into farmland and make it productive again. Abracadabra, you have productive farmland again, and now it's at least benefiting people again.
Right.
Versus just rotting.
Yeah. Circling back to the point of that article, it's a death spiral, is what it is. This is a death spiral. Like people feel disenfranchised, right? They feel not listened to. They feel oppressed. Government oppresses them. They get angry. They burn shit down. Things get worse. Then they get angry again, and government oppresses them again, and they burn shit down. And it's a cycle, and it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And as I posted the other day, like emotional outlash or emotional outlash without logical guidance.
Yep.
You'll never get the results you want.
Buy my book.
Yeah. Well, and that's the point that I keep making
as well.
What's
well,
that,
yeah.
Dan?
I said it's easily steered and maneuvered in different ways.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because if you're not using your head, you're emotionally going to be led.
And that's that point I wanted to make earlier about, we were talking about the difference between the armed protesters and unarmed protesters. Unarmed protesters are so much more vulnerable to like agent provocateurs and things like that, because all they have is their anger. Like their anger is what is sustaining them. Armed protesters don't have to be afraid. They don't have to be angry.
Well, yeah,
they know they're going to be heard one way or a fucking other. So armed protest is usually much calmer than unarmed protest.
Yeah, to get a moment of zen. There's a quote that says, anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Yeah.
Right? It's self-destructive.
To be burned. Yeah.
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 Well, that's
not to say you should never feel it, but don't let it control you.
And I'm not saying they don't have a right to be angry.
Yeah.
Right.
Like they have every right to be angry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'd say use it, like allow it to pass through you, but use it as a tool to motivate you to get done what you need to get done.
Let it cool down before you do anything, because cold anger can really fucking get shit done.
And that's exactly that. Like, and it's just broken my heart to see so many anarchists lately, like supporting the looting of mom and pop stores and the burning of mom and pop stores. And like, and I'll point out, I'll be like, but weren't you just complaining just a little bit ago about the coronavirus and lockdowns and how it was destroying economies and things and destroying people's livelihoods? And now you're going, oh, well, that's just a casualty. And then their justification is, oh, but this is being done by the people. Wait, so it's okay to destroy someone's livelihood if you're a person, but
something they've probably worked for their entire fucking life and sacrificed for, and
they've abandoned one of our principles, which is right is right and wrong is wrong, and it doesn't matter who says that government says different.
Yeah.
Right is right and wrong is wrong. Well, if theft is wrong for the individual, and then therefore theft is wrong for government, you can't magically then make theft okay in this instance, for
Right. And
individuals.
destruction is theft. Destruction is a form of theft.
You're stealing value.
You're not counting coup when you destroy private property.
Yeah.
You destroy mom. I can understand an argument being made for what they did to Target. Right? Target is tied into the government, big corporations. They supported the Fraternal Order of Police, and they did all these.
Not that I think most of those looters knew any of that.
Yeah, they sponsored all these events for the police. I can understand an argument for that, and that's a discussion for another time. But I can understand that. But like Joe's Liquor or the restaurant owned by the former black or the former firefighter,
right?
Yeah. Like those weren't. Those are not agents of the state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're not the police. They're not the one oppressing you. They're not arresting you. They don't have a knee in your neck.
They're just
they're not taxing you.
Yeah, you're destroying your own community when you destroy those places.
You know what? Destroying them, doing that to them right now, when so many of them are already struggling so hard financially, they're not going to fucking recover from this.
Yep.
You're not okay. We can even to take that step further to talk about the neighborhood, talk about the culture of the neighborhood, the ethnicity of the neighborhood. Like you're literally cutting the knees out from underneath your community.
Yep.
When you destroy
small businesses
in your community.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, the argument can be made, even some large businesses, it doesn't matter if you destroy them because they'll come back anyway. But what you're doing is eliminating those large businesses' competition because they can afford to come back. You're
just making them more powerful. Actually, if you're going to balance the financials of this, they're better off if you just loot and destroy everything in a 10-mile radius, because they can rebuild and the others fucking can't. And now all the business the others were getting has to come to them. Mm-hmm. In the long run, they make more money.
We're already crippled from the shutdown, so why don't burn the building down? It makes a lot of sense.
And on top of that, when a business in an area has a monopoly on services, they can control like the wages.
Yep.
They control wages.
They're not going to pay top dollar if they're the only business in the area.
Wages, prices, watch their return policies fucking vanish. All the customer service goes down the fucking drain because they're your only option.
Yeah, you see that with Walmarts in very small towns all the time, where that's exactly what they do. And all you're doing is because the Twin Cities had benefited from a lack of Walmarts, where they had already such an infrastructure of small shops all over the place that by the time Walmart became a thing, it really couldn't infiltrate the Twin Cities very well. Like if you go through the Twin Cities, you will not find a Walmart.
Yeah,
like you just won't. It's the same thing in Chicago. If you go through Chicago, you won't find a Walmart because there are too many small shops. But now you've destroyed them all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Orville, California. I used to live there. My kids were born Orville Hospital. Walmart came in. Montgomery Ward's died. The Target there died. The other clothing shop in the area died. And then Walmart, having a monopoly on these services, they said, "Oh, well, let's become a super Walmart." Mm-hmm. And then they expanded and started selling groceries. And that ran like Winco went out. And then the Safeway collapsed there also. So now there's like Super Walmart and Rayleigh's. And and then there's a grocery outlet, which is like literally a dollar store.
Yeah.
So what I've been hearing is it's almost like these multinational, transnational corporations have a vested interest in shit like this happening.
You notice the smirk Dan had when he said that?
Gee.
The I could have told you so smirk.
Yeah. Right.
God, I missed that smirk.
Gee, it's almost like but it's
I didn't know any better.
Right?
But I mean, that's such an issue right now in the anarchist community that just is absolutely driving me insane is you have so many anarchists who seem to be conflating collateral damage from an actual battle with just straight up organized theft.
Right.
And it
Discord,
blows my mind.
Some of them are discordant. Like, you know what I mean? Like they enjoy the discord. They enjoy the chaos. Like they revel in it.
And that's, as far as I can tell, that's all it is that they just think that the chaos is good for chaos's self. Destruction is good for destruction's self.
Broken windows.
And that's not the fucking, that's not the reality, man.
Nope.
No, it's not that I don't think that chaos can be a ladder, because it absolutely can. And it's a ladder that anarchists should certainly exploit if possible. But chaos for chaos's sake is not a good thing inherently. Destruction is not a good thing inherently. Stealing from your communities, destroying your own communities is antithetical to every possible principle that an anarchist should stand on.
And we spend how much of our fucking time telling statists anarchy does not mean chaos?
Yeah.
How many fucking times have we had to tell people that? And then now you have anarchists fucking supporting chaos, who a couple months ago were saying that's not what it means. You're just fucking discrediting all of us.
Yeah. And I'm seeing it left and right, and it's the same
you
argument.
can disassociate with all those people.
Yeah,
but
the same word still gets applied to me. I get fucking lumped together with them in people's minds.
Oh yeah,
So,
I mean, I've thought about just getting off of social media entirely and going screw it, whatever. I don't need it. But the problem is, for
I'm
me,
not saying I went extreme, but
well, yeah, you went full, like, you're practically off grid by anarchist standards. It's you know, there's it's like the old saying that, you know, in the 19th or the 18th century, if you didn't show up to the rendezvous, you might as well be dead. Well, it's the same thing with Facebook with anarchists. If you don't show up, everyone just assumes you're dead. It's
so what you're saying is a few bad apples.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But it drives me nuts, and it breaks my heart that I'm seeing so many people who, up until the past couple of weeks, past week, I respected their opinions they had to say, and now I'm seeing so much from them of just like, yay destruction, yay theft, yay all of these things that aren't directed properly, and you just clearly don't actually want a revolution, and you're just a sissy about it if you don't support all of this looting. No, I'm fine with rioting as long as it's directed at the state.
At the fucking problem.
If you're bringing police cars and police stations and state houses and the Internal Revenue Service and, like,
I'm not gonna say shit to you.
Stuff, I'll be like, sweet, awesome. Yeah. You guys going in a group, when we going. But the fact that that's not what's happening is the reason why I haven't bothered. And I keep getting asked by fellow Boog boys, like, hey, when are we gearing up? And I'm like, no, I don't want any part of this yet.
Yeah.
Because this is a disorganized rabble. It's more concerned with theft than it is change.
That's the issue. The issue is, in my opinion, that this is not a movement for liberty or freedom. This is a movement for reforming government.
Yeah, this is a movement. This is a fight over flavors of fucking boot polish.
Mm-hmm.
As Ben Stone points out so perfectly in Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage, revolutions do not result in more freedom.
No.
That's still a political change method, not a true alteration of things.
Yes.
That's all you're doing, and that's all this is.
What'd you say, Dan?
Didn't Ben leave social media too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
He left Facebook. He was on Twitter for a bit, and then got sick of Twitter. And then he was on Float for a little bit, and now he's left Float.
Not even on MeWe, man. Not even on MeWe.
Yeah.
He's on Telegram, but
I'm still on MeWe actually, but that's because there are a bunch of gun groups on it. So it's,
Oh.
What's that, Dan?
That I can affect more real change in the real world by raising two young ones and maybe more, you know?
Well, Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of those things that, again, Ben talks about in his book is nobody and nothing can create more anarchists and more people seeking freedom than the actions of the government itself.
Yep.
Like,
Oh yeah.
like we will never outbreed them. We can never educate enough people to vote them out. Agorism, as much as I love it, you can't starve the beast when the beast prints its own money.
Yep.
Right? So it has to, we have to make our own freedom. And these people are not trying to make freedom. They're trying to reform government, trying to remodel it into what they want.
Yep.
This is not an act of liberty or freedom.
Yeah. None of these people marching
this
on the streets have ever put like philosophical effort into defining.
No, this is no different. This is, in my opinion, the protesters, in my opinion, this is no different than the big begaloo back in January in Virginia.
Yeah.
20,000 people showed up armed to protest the government, and the government shrugged it off and still passed gun control, and nothing has fucking happened.
The government gave them cages to stand in, and they fucking did it.
Free speech zones that they had to give up their firearms to get into.
Yep.
A push for change without the right principles is not a push for change at all.
No, it's not.
All you're doing, you're not changing the direction you're going. You've just changed lanes. That's it.
Right.
At best, that's all you've done. You're still traveling the same direction.
Yeah.
So there's no reason for me to be packing up. There's no reason for me to be getting ready to mobilize right now, because why?
Yeah.
There's no good that's going to come out of this.
At best, the only reason I can even think of going out there would be to protect mom and pop businesses.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
I haven't been asked, and there's nothing like that in my area.
Yep.
Yeah, and we have the riots. Yeah, exactly. It would be. And it's, and we have the riots in Milwaukee right now.
The police here in California would actually fucking shoot me if they saw me on the street with a rifle.
Oh,
oh
sure.
Yeah. See, I benefit from being in Wisconsin from that, because they won't. But there are riots in Milwaukee. There are riots in Madison here in Wisconsin. There are growing protests here in La Crosse, because I figured that would be the case, because when you think about big cities in Wisconsin, there's like Milwaukee is the big one because it's Chicago light. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Then there's Madison, which is, well, we call it Madtown for a reason, because it's insane.
So it's a
Andrew, I know more about Wisconsin now than I ever wanted to know. You always go off on dissertations about Wisconsin.
No, I'm just saying, like, there's Madtown, right, which is the birthplace of actual progressivism, like political progressivism. And Dan, I don't know if you knew that, but progressivism, that the political progressivism, the entire movement, was born at University of Wisconsin.
1920s and shit.
Yeah, at University of Wisconsin is where it started. So that's why
I'm like 22 miles from UC Berkeley.
Oh yeah, there's another.
I know.
Two cities are probably going to be first, but I figure that La Crosse is probably next. So we have this growing protest here because we're like kind of the next big city, and we're right in line on the interstate heading towards Minneapolis. Like if you take the interstate from Minneapolis to Chicago, you go right past La Crosse at exactly the halfway mark. So I knew that it was going to happen here. And I've already put out an APB like, hey, if anybody has a business downtown and riots start and you need somebody to come stand in front of your business, fully armed in full battle rattle and more than willing to put looters down, I am more than happy to do that for free. Just let me know where it is.
And that is an act of freedom and liberty greater than any protester or looter or rioter on the street.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right, we're coming up on time. Let's get last word from you, Dan.
Let me just throw this in here. Now, what if, right? They, through watching all their channels through social media and what what the chatter is, and like what people are thinking and everything, because they kind of have algorithms that can kind of, drag
farming.
Yeah, and see what the general consensus is. and that they felt that people were going to organically revolt, right? So then they kind of preempt the revolt with their own to kind of hijack it, and then people are like, "What the fuck? Like, what do I do now?" You know
If
what
I
mean?
was
To
going
kinda
to kill the
confuse-
Boog movement,
Yeah.
this is how I do it.
That's how they killed Occupy Wall Street. That's how they
Yeah.
killed the hippie movement. That's how they always do it.
Part of psych warfare too, you know what I mean? Because it's like you fake your opponent out, and you're like, well, you can catch
Well,
them
yeah.
off guard.
If you can change the public perception, you're going to kill people's willingness to engage in it.
Well, and the most
or to
frustrating
even
thing,
support it.
well, yeah,
And
they're doing that right now with the Boog movement, where they're trying to portray
White
so many-
supremacists.
Yeah, as white, we're trying to we're all
was-
white supremacists, and it's
I saw an
infuriating.
article. I saw an article today about Boog and how the Hawaiian shirts were cultural appropriation.
Jesus.
The designs created by white people after the United States conned the king of Hawaii out of Hawaii. The shirts are created by white people for white people wearing them is cultural appropriation.
Yep.
Yeah, that propaganda is like way out of control anymore.
All right, I got a quote from Carl Hess I want to read real quick, and then we'll get off. But it's for loving, working, and creative people to throw off the yoke of power, it is necessary to abolish power itself, not merely to make the yoke comfortable. Where some have power, others do not, and that two classes persist. A free society where all have power over and responsibility for their own lives, power and reason to respect the lives of others. That is also a society without classes, a society of human beings, not rulers, and those to be ruled.
Yep.
That is my homeboy Carl Hess.
Yeah.
So, all right, final words. What's your, I don't know, spit something philosophical, Dan.
Oh no, I would just
give us
say,
something good.
like, if you want to be true to your, label or whatever to these people that want, chaos and everything, I'd suggest just being a master of your own self and over what you can control in this life. Because really, at like the bottom of it all, when you come down to the term anarchy and no rulers, it's like it ultimately comes from being responsible for yourself, like you were saying.
And the first step is not letting anyone or anything else control you.
Exactly.
Including your own fucking emotions.
Yep.
So,
that's one of the main things you have to master.
Yeah, I think that's the first thing, honestly.
Yeah, look up stoicism.
Hell yeah. I fucking love me some stoicism.
Yep. Andrew, you got any final thoughts? You're smart.
Yeah, I think that the tragedy, the biggest tragedy that I'm seeing out of most of this is the misdirection, the problems of how people have been so easily manipulated, and not just the statists who I think we all knew are easily manipulated, but we're seeing so many anarchists prove themselves to care more about chaos and destruction and theft than they care about actually overthrowing the state. And what they've only proven is that they can't be trusted. Like, a lot of them were people who I would have wanted on my Boog squad before, but now I obviously can't trust you to do the right thing. So I don't want anything to do with you, come the Boog, because I'm never going to be able to trust you. The sad reality is that people who are actually on the political right and status and are claimed to be Boog boys are still more trustworthy to actually try and help me achieve my goals than you are at this point. And it's absurd. It is absolutely absurd. And you people should be ashamed of yourselves.
Like, I don't view them as fully adult. Like, you think of the word adult and you think like stable and not easily led around.
Responsible for your own actions.
For themselves, yeah.
No.
So quit being fucking infants.
Yeah, exactly. On that note, this has been episode 94.
Before we're done, though, patch giveaway. We didn't have anyone who actually
Nobody
managed
fucking
to
shared.
enter. Not one person wanted this patch. So if anyone wants it, this is a plague doctor holding toilet paper and a bottle of Corona. It says "Work hard, plague hard." It is
Yes.
morale patch. I have a second one to give away to somebody
That's
for
great.
free. You don't have to pay a dime. I will even cover shipping. All you have to do is share this post from Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable Discussion, have liked Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable Discussion's
On
Facebook
Facebook.
page,
Yeah.
liked Poppins Patch's Facebook page, and I will pick somebody who actually manages to pull that off. I will send you a free patch. And I
That's too
managed
many
to do it on
steps, dude.
yeah, I managed to do it on Hootenanny Roundup, and I managed
What?
to give a patch away. And I have a shit ton more patches coming for giveaways.
What? You mean it's
Between-
not free? I have to
Yeah,
do that?
between this and that, like I have a ton. Unfortunately, I don't have one to give away of this one, but it is pretty awesome.
Liking and sharing is theft, man.
Yeah, all you got to do. I even have one of the Boogaloo Shark ones that has become so super popular. This glows in the dark, guys. It's super neat. I love it. Boogaloo
Look up-
Shark.
You can pop your shrooms and look at the glow in the dark shark.
Yeah, and it glows bright, man. Man, does it glow bright. But I even got that to give away. All you guys got to do is follow the directions. You just gotta share the post. You just gotta like the 2 pages. That's all you gotta do. I will find one of you who does that. Oh, and also like the post too if you're gonna share it. Make sure that you like it too. But that's all you gotta do, and I'll send you this thing for free. This is like a $12 patch.
He's got tears in his eyes, guys. He's literally begging. I can hear angels singing. Help Andrew out. Please.
I'm begging you, man. Let me give you some free
Do
stuff.
it for the patches.
Truly free stuff. The guy who makes these, who runs Poppins Patches, he and I are doing these giveaways on my pages. Like, I'm sending you completely free things that he manufactured of his own free will and sent to me to give to you for free if you follow the directions.
At least we're not selling boner pills or something.
Yeah, it's not super male vitality. It's a goddamn PVC.
Andrew has the documents. He can show you if you buy one.
Don't make me tear my shirt off.
Yeah. On that note, this has been episode 94 of Anarchy Among Friends Roundtable Discussion. Remember, count Coup, don't loot, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah.
Peace.
Peace.